The first sign that my life was about to split in half came on a gray Thursday morning in Riverside, Ohio. The kind of morning where the sky looks like someone dragged a dirty sheet over the sun. I'd stopped by the parking lot behind the business complex on Concord Avenue to pick up a package from my office mailbox. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual, until the crash. It happened 10 feet from me, a booming metallic crack that cut through the hum of morning traffic. I spun around just in time to see a champagne-colored luxury SUV slam its front bumper into the back corner of a delivery van. Plastic and fiberglass scattered across the pavement like confetti. The driver's door of the SUV swung open, and out stepped a man in an immaculate navy suit, the kind of fabric that costs more than my monthly salary as a university systems auditor. He brushed invisible dust from his sleeves, calm as a surgeon washing up before an operation. "I'm so sorry about that," he said to the stunned delivery driver, voice smooth and polite, but not remotely apologetic. I recognized that face immediately, although I wasn't sure from where. Dark blonde hair, gym-polished build, a jaw that looked digitally sculpted. He carried himself like he expected the world to part around him. The delivery driver sputtered something about insurance. The suited man nodded absently, barely listening, then turned and spotted me watching. His expression shifted. Not surprise, not discomfort, but recognition. "You must be Peter," he said, smiling like we were old friends. I blinked. "Do I know you?" "Well, not officially," he chuckled. "I'm Kevin Poulter." He reached out to shake my hand. "You're married to Emily, right? Emily Glinsk?" My stomach tightened. Emily, my wife of 22 years. The woman I'd kissed goodbye that same morning while she told me she had a long compliance meeting ahead of her. Kevin continued talking, oblivious to the storm beginning to form behind my ribs. "I met Emily at last month's Madison conference. Fantastic event. She looked incredible in that blue dress. Absolutely owned the room." Blue dress? Emily didn't own a blue dress, and she'd never mentioned any conference. "She didn't tell me she went to a conference," I said carefully. Kevin raised an eyebrow. "Really? Huh. Well, maybe she didn't think it mattered. Anyway, great woman. Charming. Smart. Fun." He lingered on the word fun too long. He pulled a business card from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. "Call me if you ever need anything, Peter. Anything." Then he turned back to deal with the delivery driver, who finally found his voice. But I didn't hear them anymore. All I heard was pounding, the slow, rhythmic thud of blood in my ears. Emily had lied. And this stranger in a suit knew something I didn't. When I got home that evening, Emily was standing at the stove, stirring pasta sauce like she didn't have a single secret in the world. Her dark brown hair was pulled back, and she wore the same corporate blouse she'd left in. No blue dress, no conference badge, no hint of anything unusual. "How was your day?" she asked casually. I dropped Kevin's card on the counter. "You know a guy named Kevin Poulter?" Her hand froze mid-stir. She turned slowly. "Why?" "He mentioned you. Said he saw you at a conference in Madison." Emily blinked once, twice, then laughed, a small, dismissive sound. "Oh, that. It wasn't a conference. It was a managerial training session. Super boring. I barely remember who was there." She waved a hand, trying to sound casual. "My department makes everyone attend." I studied her face. She didn't look guilty, didn't look nervous, but she didn't look comfortable either. "Did you wear a blue dress?" I asked. She frowned. "What? No." Why would I wear a blue dress to a mandatory training? I nodded slowly. Just checking. But the seed had already been planted, and it was going to grow. Over the next week, small things began to feel off. Emily spent longer on her makeup in the mornings. 10 minutes turned to 20, then 30, then almost an hour. When I teased her about it, she brushed me off. I just want to look put together. Is that a crime? Her phone, once left charging on the kitchen island every night, never left her side anymore. She kept it face down, locked, and turned off notifications for everything except urgent work calls. When I walked into a room, she seemed to shut off parts of her personality like switches. Laughter stopping mid-breath, phone screens minimized, conversations suddenly turning vague. I told myself I was imagining it. Work stress, hormones, family obligations, any excuse would do. But then came the finances. One afternoon, while paying bills, I noticed that our joint account balance was lower than it should have been. Not catastrophically low, but noticeably. Weirdly. Emily managed our budget, always had. She was good at it, organized and precise, but something didn't add up. So I opened our online banking portal, and that was the beginning. The first red flag, a personal loan taken out in both our names, one I'd never heard about. The second, a new credit card, with a statement full of charges at upscale restaurants, boutique lingerie stores, and a hotel downtown. Hotel, lingerie, restaurants, all dated over the past 2 months. My chest constricted. My hands went cold. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was evidence. Undeniable. Irrefutable. My wife was cheating on me, funding a lifestyle I didn't know existed, with a man she told me nothing about. Kevin. That night, as Emily brushed her teeth in the bathroom, our 15-year-old daughter Sasha knocked on my office door and peeked in. Dad, can I ask you something? I closed my laptop quickly. Sure, honey, what's up? She stepped inside and fidgeted with her sleeve. Is Mom okay? She's different. I tried to act casual. Different how? I don't know. Sasha shrugged. She's always smiling at her phone, and she journals a lot. She used to do that only when she was stressed, but now it's like she's excited about something. Happy, in secret. My heart cracked. I'm sure she's fine, I lied. Maybe work is going better. Sasha nodded, unconvinced. Well, okay. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. I waited until she'd gone upstairs before closing my eyes and exhaling the longest, heaviest breath of my life. Emily wasn't just cheating. She was thriving in her betrayal, and I was drowning in it. The next morning, Emily left early, too early, claiming she had to review compliance documentation at the office. As soon as the garage door closed behind her, I followed. I stayed several cars behind, careful, slow, patient. She drove to Riverside's Central District, but instead of turning into her company's parking garage, she pulled into a small coffee shop called Maple and Ash. 5 minutes later, a familiar champagne-colored SUV rolled up. Kevin. He stepped out, winked at her, kissed her hand, and they walked inside together. I stayed in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I watched them lean across a small table, whispering, laughing. Emily tucked her hair behind her ear, something she only did when she wanted someone to notice her. Kevin touched her wrist. She didn't pull away. After an hour, they left together. I followed them as they drove to the Fairmont Hotel, a place known in Riverside for hosting conferences, charity galas, and illicit affairs. They disappeared inside. 2 hours passed, 3, 4. And when Emily finally returned home that night, she complained about departmental audits running late. I wrote down the exact times, the exact locations, the exact lies, line by line, entry by entry. My wife wasn't coming home to me anymore, not in her heart, not in her mind, not even in her schedule. And yet she sent me texts all evening. Don't wait up. I'm working late. I'm not your property, Peter. That one stung the most, because I hadn't asked where she was. She'd volunteered the lie. She wanted me ignorant. She wanted me obedient. She wanted me blind. But I was done being blind. I was done being anything but thorough. I was an auditor, and I was about to audit my own marriage. This was only the beginning, because the deeper I looked, the uglier the truth became. And Kevin Poulter, the man with the luxury SUV and the flawless smile, was hiding a life even darker than the one he shared with my wife. A life I was about to unravel thread by thread. And when I was finished, neither of them would be able to lie their way out of the wreckage. The second phase of this nightmare didn't begin with some dramatic revelation or confrontation. It began with numbers, small, quiet, damning numbers. The kind of figures most people ignore until they're on fire. I was the kind of man who noticed them before they smoked. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Emily's pattern sharpen into something undeniable. She left early, returned late, and lived inside her phone like it was her oxygen supply. If I stepped into the room, she'd flip the screen over or close an app so quickly you'd think I walked in, holding a subpoena. Her excuses were perfectly rehearsed. Long meeting, unexpected audit, team dinner. Don't wait up. Every time she lied, she did it with a new boldness, as if lying to me didn't just protect her new life, it thrilled her. Meanwhile, nights alone became routine. Sasha spent most evenings in her room with headphones on, avoiding the thickening storm. I tried not to let her see the dread in my face. Sometimes she'd ask, "When will Mom be home?" And I'd answer with the same pathetic half-truths Emily fed me. But while Emily drifted deeper into her double life, I dove deeper into my investigation. The Fairmont Hotel became my second home. I learned the layout, the staff schedule, the security camera blind spots, and the rhythm of foot traffic. I even rented a small office space a block away so I could monitor without sitting in my car for hours. The first time I followed Emily and Kevin inside, I expected guilt or fear to stop me. Instead, I felt something colder, cleaner, purpose. I watched them hold hands in the lobby like teenagers, watched the way she leaned into him like a woman who wanted to be chosen, watched them slip into the elevator, always pressing the same button for the 8th floor. I took photos. I logged timestamps. I collected receipts. Every entry in my notebook was a needle stitching together the truth. But there was another truth forming too, one I didn't understand until later. Kevin wasn't just using my wife. He was using her money. One afternoon when Emily claimed she had to help HR prepare for regional inspections, I opened her private email, access courtesy of a small piece of monitoring software I'd installed on her laptop. Her inbox exploded with red flags. There were repayment reminders from a loan service addressed to both of us. There were charges on a new credit card she opened with her maiden name, Glinsk, instead of Glinsk Marshall. There were wire transfers, large ones, always around the same dates she'd visited the Fairmont. Then I found hotel receipts, not just dinners and drinks, but overnight stays, premium rooms, room service. a couple's massage package billed under the name E. Glenn. Emily wasn't even bothering to hide it well. The money trail was clear. She funded every dinner, every date, every hotel stay, every indulgence that Kevin enjoyed. And she wasn't paying for two people. She was paying for him entirely. Because Kevin Poulter was flat broke. I discovered that during a search through public records and credit databases, university auditors have access to tools that normal civilians don't. And it wasn't illegal to use them for personal curiosity, though morally gray might have been generous. Kevin had tens of thousands in credit card debt. He had delinquent payments on the SUV he flaunted like status jewelry. And the worst part? He'd been flagged by a gambling watchdog group for repeated casino losses. He wasn't a successful businessman. He was a polished parasite. A man who knew how to smile at the exact angle needed to loosen wallets or hearts. And he had latched onto my wife like a leech. The more information I dug up, the clearer it became. Emily wasn't just cheating. She was being groomed, manipulated, used. But that didn't make her innocent. It made her reckless. And that recklessness was about to catch up with both of them. One evening at the Fairmont, something changed. Emily and Kevin didn't meet for a date. They met in the lobby, hurried, tense, and Kevin looked like he'd sprinted through a thunderstorm. His hair was disheveled, his eyes wild. He argued with the front desk employee while Emily tried to soothe him. I could only hear bits and pieces, but one line from Kevin cut through the noise. "Tell her to stop calling me. She's crazy." The receptionist kept his expression neutral. "Sir, we cannot provide that information." Then a voice echoed across the lobby. "Kevin Poulter, you get down here right now." A woman, mid-40s, angry, exhausted, stood by the entrance, clutching a folder of documents. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her hair was a mess. Mascara smudged from either tears or fury. That's when I recognized her from one of the photos in Kevin's financial report. Linda Poulter, his wife, not ex-wife, wife. Her presence made Kevin go pale. Emily froze, her face crumbling as the truth hit her. I sat in a corner with a newspaper, watching a marriage explode in real time. Linda stormed through the lobby toward Kevin. "Why the hell is our joint credit card maxed out? Why is the IRS sending us letters? Why did I find a hotel bill in your name for two people?" Kevin grabbed her arm and hissed, "Not here." But Linda jerked away. "You think I won't say it? You think I won't cause a scene? You're cheating on me while you drown us in debt." Emily's face went white. She turned to Kevin. You're married?" Kevin looked between the two women, scrambling for a lie. Linda wasn't having it. She dumped the folder's contents on the floor. Credit statements, bank letters, hotel receipts. "You're a liar, a fraud, a worthless—" "Enough!" Kevin barked, grabbing her wrist. Security intervened instantly. Emily stepped back, horrified, and I took a photo, then another, then 10 more. Because this meltdown, this confrontation, this unraveling of Kevin's carefully curated image was ammunition, a weapon. And Emily had no idea how much it would matter soon. When I left the hotel, I called Emily. She answered breathlessly. "Peter, is everything okay?" "I was just wondering how the compliance audit is going," I said. Silence. Then a shaky exhale. "Fine, it's just long, stressful. I'll be home later." Lie, lie, lie. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Not when I could still collect more. Not when I could still dismantle both of them with precision. That night, I sat alone in my small rented office, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop. Emily wasn't just cheating. Kevin wasn't just lying. Together, they were committing fraud. And I knew exactly how to use it. I created a new anonymous email address. I attached several financial documents tying Kevin to misallocated corporate funds in his department, funds he used to pay down gambling debts and float his lifestyle with Emily. Then I sent the email to the internal audit division of Morrison & Partners, Kevin's employer. No threats, no accusations, just a breadcrumb trail leading straight to him. And I wasn't done. Not even close. 3 days later, Emily came home late, exhausted and irritable. She dropped her bag on the couch and rubbed her forehead. "I need a shower," she murmured. But I'd already seen her day, because the tracking software on her phone told me everything. She'd met Kevin at the Fairmont. They'd argued. Someone from internal audit had shown up and demanded to speak with him. He stormed out. She left an hour later, shaken. Her affair was collapsing. Her lies were thinning. Her perfect fantasy was being held underwater. And I was holding the weight. That night I prepared the file. A thick, neatly organized folder containing hotel dates, credit card statements, photos, timestamps, messages, and a full audit of her financial misconduct. I placed it on my desk and waited. Because the moment was coming, the one where Emily would finally face everything she'd destroyed. I wasn't ready for it emotionally, but I was ready logically. And logic was all I had left. Peter didn't sleep that night. Not really. He drifted in and out of shallow half-dreams, his mind bouncing between spreadsheets, hotel lobbies, and the image of Emily's tired, frightened eyes when she arrived home earlier than usual. Something inside her had cracked. He could tell. Something in her illusion of safety had finally given way. He sat at the small desk in the rented office, the same one he'd taken after leaving the university, a space that had become part command center, part sanctuary. The monitors hummed softly. The lighting was dim and warm. It was quiet enough that he could hear his own heartbeat, slow and steady, like a metronome guiding him through the next stage. He didn't want anger anymore. Anger had been burned out of him weeks ago. What remained was clarity, a brutal, cold clarity he never knew he possessed. Kevin Palter was unraveling faster than either of the lovers expected. Internal audit had moved quicker than Peter predicted, probably thanks to the anonymous emails he'd been sending for days. Linda's arrival in Columbus added even more pressure. And now Emily seemed to feel the shift in the air. She wasn't good at hiding guilt. She was even worse at hiding fear. Peter rubbed his eyes and leaned back in the chair. On the second monitor, the folder of evidence glowed like a small digital bonfire. Financial reports, hotel timestamps, camera stills, email threads. Each piece meticulously sorted, labeled, cross-referenced. Not out of obsession, but because once the line was crossed, once he committed himself to exposing the truth, he wanted it done perfectly. He had lived his entire life devoted to precision. Now precision would be the knife. When morning came, he returned home to find Emily in the kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked like she had aged 5 years overnight. "Peter," she said quietly, "we need to talk." He didn't say anything, just nodded and waited. She swallowed. Do you think I'm not being honest with you? About work? About everything?" It was almost laughable. He held a neutral expression, something he'd perfected over the past month. "I think," he said slowly, that people are often dishonest when they're afraid of what the truth will cost them. Emily looked down. Her fingers trembled. But Peter wasn't ready. Not yet. Not before everything fell perfectly into place. And it was about to. Later that afternoon, he received the notification he'd been waiting for. An alert from the internal audit portal. Kevin's company had escalated their investigation. Accounts frozen. Access revoked. A mandatory interview scheduled. Peter allowed himself one small, quiet breath of satisfaction. He left the office early, wanting to be home before Emily returned. His daughter Sasha was already there, sitting on the couch, sketching in her notebook. She looked up. "Dad, Mom said she might be home late again." He watched her expression, careful, controlled, but not blind. She was 15 and perceptive enough to sense that something inside their household had shifted. "Did she say why?" he asked. Sasha shrugged. "Something about compliance reviews." She hesitated. "Dad, I don't think she's happy." It struck Peter how children always saw what adults tried to hide. Sasha wasn't naive. She simply hadn't said anything until she felt safe. Peter sat beside her. "Do you feel okay? With everything happening?" She gave a small nod. "I like being with you. You're calm. You always know what you're doing." Those words warmed him more than he expected. "Thanks, Sasha." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I just want things to be honest around here." Honest. Yes. That was the root of everything. When she went upstairs, Peter sat alone in the living room, waiting for a message that he knew would come. And it did. At 9:47 p.m., Emily sent a single text. "I'm staying at the office tonight. You don't need to wait up." She didn't know he already tracked her phone location. She wasn't heading to the office. She was heading to the Fairmont. And she wasn't alone. Peter didn't follow her this time. There was no need. Tonight wasn't about surveillance. Tonight the walls were closing in on Kevin from all sides. His wife, the auditors, the detective looking for him, the hotel staff he owed money to. Emily was stepping into a collapsing building, and she didn't even realize it. Instead, Peter waited at home, letting exhaustion finally take him. He'd need strength for what came next. The next morning, as he sat outside with a fresh mug of coffee, a police car drove down the street. It slowed, stopped, and 2 officers stepped out. They didn't look confused. They looked purposeful. Peter felt his breath catch, not out of fear, but out of anticipation. Emily arrived 5 minutes later, rushing toward the officers with wide eyes and trembling hands. "What happened?" she demanded. One of the officers turned. "Ma'am, do you know a Kevin Poulter?" Emily froze, her face drained of color. "Yes. He was taken into custody this morning. Multiple charges. Fraud, misappropriation of funds, tax evasion." Her eyes flicked to Peter, and in that moment he saw everything collapse inside her. Every lie, every fantasy, every delusion of invincibility. How did this happen?" she whispered. Peter took a long sip of his coffee. "People always leave a trail," he said quietly, "especially when they think no one's watching." Emily stared at him, realization blooming like a bruise across her face. "You? You knew?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because the truth stood between them now, unavoidable and massive. The officers left. Emily stood frozen in the driveway, hugging herself, shaking. Peter set the coffee mug down, walked inside, returned with a thick navy blue folder, and placed it on the hood of her car. She opened it. Photographs, receipts, hotel logs, credit card statements, email transcripts, timestamps, Recordings. She flipped through page after page, her breathing becoming shallow, her fingers faltering as she reached the final section. A financial breakdown showing the money Kevin had taken from her. How much she had given him. How much of it had come from accounts with Peter's name on them. When she reached the last page, she looked up at him with the expression of someone who had walked willingly into a burning room only to discover the door had locked behind them. "Peter," her voice cracked. "What is all this?" "The truth," he said simply. He watched her eyes fill with tears, and then he watched them overflow. But pity wasn't something he felt anymore, not for her, not after everything she'd chosen. "Why didn't you say anything?" she whispered. "Why didn't you confront me?" "Because you weren't ready to tell the truth," he said, "and I wasn't going to beg for honesty." She closed the folder, unable to look at it any longer. What she didn't know was that he had only just begun. That afternoon, after Emily had retreated inside to gather whatever remained of her composure, Peter visited the office of the family attorney. The divorce papers were finalized and prepared. He reviewed every line twice, ensuring the divisions, the clauses, the protections were airtight. Emily's affair, the financial misconduct, the debt she incurred under both their names, all of it placed her at a distinct legal disadvantage. He didn't want vengeance. He wanted equilibrium. When he returned home, the house was silent. Emily was upstairs, packing. He could hear drawers opening, bags being zipped. Sasha sat on the staircase, knees pulled to her chest. She looked up at him. "Are you getting divorced?" Peter sat down next to her. "Yes." She nodded once, slowly, processing. "Am I staying here?" "If you want to," he said. "I do." He exhaled. Relief washed through him. After Sasha went to her room, Emily descended the stairs. Her eyes were red, but her posture was stiff, mechanical. "You really gathered all of this? You really spent weeks watching me?" "No," Peter said gently. "I spent weeks accepting who you chose to be." She flinched. He handed her the divorce packet. "You can stay with your sister. Sasha stays here. She already decided." Emily looked like she wanted to protest, wanted to argue, to salvage something, but her shoulders dropped as if the weight of consequence finally pinned her down. She signed the papers with a shaking hand. When she walked out the door, Peter didn't watch her leave. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, and stood silently with both hands braced against the counter. He wasn't proud. He wasn't triumphant. He was simply at peace. But the story wasn't over. Because Emily would return. They always did. Because losing everything wasn't something she would accept quietly. Not when she believed she deserved more. Not when she believed Peter would always be her safe landing. She wasn't ready to understand that he had already closed that chapter. The next time she came back, it would not be with apologies. It would be with accusations. And then the final confrontation would begin. Emily didn't return for 6 days. Peter thought she might disappear longer, hide behind her sister's sympathy, blame Kevin's arrest for everything, pretend her own decisions hadn't paved the road to where she now stood. But denial has an expiration date, and guilt becomes unbearable once the chaos quiets down. Eventually, people seek someone to absorb the blame for them. He expected her. He just didn't expect the expression she wore when she finally appeared. It was raining that afternoon, a soft, cold drizzle that blurred the world into muted silhouettes. Peter was sitting in his office at the university, finishing an audit checklist, when his phone buzzed. Emily, I need to talk to you. I'm outside. He closed the laptop, put on his coat, and walked to the parking lot. She stood near the entrance beneath the awning, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, mascara slightly smudged, not enough to suggest a meltdown, but enough to say she'd tried to hold one back. "Peter," she whispered when she saw him. "Thank you for coming." He nodded and stepped outside with her. The raindrops pattered softly on the concrete. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she inhaled shakily. "You ruined us." The calmness inside him didn't budge. "No, Emily. I exposed what you were doing. You destroyed Kevin. Kevin destroyed Kevin. You didn't have to help them," she snapped, voice rising. "You sent those files. You sent those emails. You talked to people you had no right to talk to." "Emily," he said evenly, "you stole money from our accounts and gave it to a married man who manipulated you for cash. What did you think would happen?" She looked away, jaw tight. Rain beaded in her hair. "You acted like some kind of judge," she whispered, "like you were punishing us." "I wasn't punishing you," he said. "I was stopping you." Emily shook her head slowly. "I loved him." Peter studied her face. For the first time, he believed her. She really thought what she'd had with Kevin was love, messy, destructive, obsessive love. "You loved a fantasy," Peter said gently. "He loved your money." Her throat tightened, and her eyes flashed as if the words struck something raw. "You never even tried to save us," she said suddenly. "You didn't fight for our marriage. You didn't ask me to stay. You didn't argue. You just let me go." Peter paused. "Because by the time I discovered the truth, you were already gone." The rain was falling harder now. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, stepping closer as if searching for warmth that wasn't there. "Couldn't you have talked to me?" she whispered. "Before all of this?" "I tried," he said softly. "For years." She closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. Not from the rain. "And now?" she asked. "Is there anything left? Anything at all?" Peter breathed slowly. "No." It was the truth. Not laced with anger. Not sharpened with spite. Just honest. Emily nodded weakly. She swiped a hand across her wet face. "I feel like I lost everything." "You lost what you chose," he said. "And now you get to choose differently." She looked at him with a mixture of heartbreak and recognition. Recognition that he was no longer the man she could lean on, manipulate, or return to out of convenience. He had grown past her, miles and miles beyond. And Emily, who always believed she'd have a place to return if the world fell apart, finally understood. She was standing on unfamiliar ground. "Please tell Sasha I love her," she whispered. "You can tell her yourself," Peter said. "But don't expect her to ignore what she saw." Emily nodded slowly. She turned away, walking down the wet sidewalk until her figure dissolved into the rain. For the first time since this nightmare began, Peter felt a genuine release. He returned home to find Sasha on the couch, with a textbook open beside her. "How was school?" he asked. She smiled. "Fine." Then she looked at him carefully. "Mom was here earlier." He sat across from her. "What did she say?" "That she loves me." Sasha paused. "And that she's sorry." Peter frowned. "Did you believe her?" Sasha thought for a long moment. "I think she's sorry for herself," she said finally. "But maybe one day she'll be sorry for what she did." He nodded, proud of her clarity, her maturity, things he hadn't expected her to gain from watching a marriage fall apart. Yet here she was, resilient and wise beyond her years. She closed the textbook. "Dad?" "Yes?" You didn't destroy anything. He exhaled slowly. I know. You just told the truth. He smiled faintly. That's all I ever wanted. Weeks passed. A quiet calm settled in their home like fresh snowfall. Sasha adjusted better than he imagined. She threw herself into her schoolwork, her art, her friendships. She laughed more. She talked more. The tension, the secrecy, the subtle dread that had stalked their home for months, maybe years, had finally lifted. Peter returned fully to his job at the university. The office welcomed him back with genuine warmth, grateful to have someone who valued order and accuracy. He didn't miss the private office. He didn't miss the surveillance missions. He didn't miss the shadow life he'd been forced into. He felt normal again, whole again. Until the afternoon, a familiar voice broke the peace. He was walking out of the campus cafeteria when he heard someone call his name. Peter. He turned. Emily stood there, her hair shorter now, styled professionally. Her posture less rigid. Her eyes clearer. She looked humbled. Not broken, just honest. Hi, she said softly. He nodded. Emily, can we talk? He motioned toward a quiet bench under a beech tree. They sat. I'm not here to ask for anything, she began. I just wanted to apologize. Peter waited, giving her space. I blamed you, she said, for everything, because it was easier. She swallowed hard. But you didn't destroy me. I did that myself. He didn't speak. And Kevin, she exhaled shakily. He's taking a plea deal. 4 years, maybe less with time served. He had expected that. Emily continued, her voice soft. I lost my job. I'm working as a secretary now. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. He nodded. That's good. I also wanted to say... She hesitated. I miss Sasha. She knows that, Peter said. And when she's ready, she'll reach out. Tears prickled in Emily's eyes, but she blinked them away. I just wish things had been different, she whispered. I wish we could have talked. Maybe we could have saved us. Maybe, Peter said, but maybe not. She looked at him sadly. Do you hate me? No. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Then what do you feel? Closure. Emily nodded slowly, accepting it, truly accepting it. She stood. Goodbye, Peter. Goodbye, Emily. She walked away, and he didn't watch her go. Months later, Peter and Sasha sat on the back porch one warm evening. Fireflies flickered across the yard. A book rested open in Peter's lap. Sasha looked up at the stars. Dad, are you happy? He considered the question, thought of Emily, thought of the storm they survived, thought of the silent peace inside his chest now. Yes, he said. I think I am. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They stayed like that, quiet, comfortable. His phone buzzed on the table beside him. A message from Sarah, the woman from the book club. Want to grab coffee sometime? Peter stared at it for several seconds. Calm, thoughtful. Then he smiled gently to himself and deleted the message. Not out of fear, not out of pain, but because he wasn't ready yet. He had his daughter, his work, his peace, and for now, that was enough. He picked up his book, turned the page, and began to read beneath the quiet shimmer of the stars. For the first time in a long, long time, he felt exactly where he was meant to be.